Well, good afternoon, everyone. Meteorologist Michael Wilhite here with Southern Indiana weather. We have a chance of some severe weather later this week. The hype machine has already started on Facebook and Twitter. Been monitoring things, and do want to just sort of cut the spin off of it, and let's sort of talk about where we are. First off, let's look at our outlooks. Two outlooks get issued every day for as far as severe weather goes, and so this is primarily going to be a Thursday night nocturnal kind of event. Now, this morning we started off with this outlook, which included just a small corner of southwest Indiana here around the Evansville metro area in the slight risk for severe weather marginal rest. By this afternoon, they have greatly reduced that. I think that's a good thing. Marginal risk may be justified. We'll talk about that why as we go through this video. But folks, this is not something that we ought to hype up to epic proportions. And, sometimes there are those that like to do that either for clickbait or just for attention or to get more traffic to their site, whatever the reason. I'm not going to be that way. The bottom line is this is not a impressive setup. There's very good wind energy, which I'll show you. Instability is much more limited. So let's just cut the spin and let's talk about it. Let's break out the old graphic that we haven't broke out for a while because we haven't had a severe weather threat in a while. So let's talk about what you need for severe weather. And you got basically three things that you need for severe weather. First off, you have to have a forcing mechanism there on the bottom one. It can come through a form of a front, a low pressure, upper level disturbances, whatever. Ours will come in the form of a powerful cold front that's going to move through on Thursday night that will bring the chance of severe weather. You also need very strong winds, wind shear. Not just a change in direction, but a change in speed as you go up. Somewhere in the upper levels of the atmosphere, you really need about 35 to 40 knots of winds to be able to get organized severe weather. And you need a third ingredient, and it's really essential. You got to have some instability. That comes in the form of warmth and moisture, and you've got to have that level of instability into the atmosphere. If you don't, you're just going to have a very hard time getting storms. So let's just take a look at it. Again, there's our risk graphic. Let's analyze these things. Let's talk about our wind speeds first. First thing I want you to know, absolutely plenty of wind speeds. We're looking at winds here, what we would call the low-level jet. So this is winds at about 4,000 feet or so up in the air, and this is about the time the front would be rolling through in the area. You can see, by the way, if you wanted to trace it, the low pressure is kind of off the map up here, but trace down through the lines like this, and that's pretty well where the apex of the lines come here. That is essentially where the cold front is, and you got some very strong winds. You can see sustained wind speeds around 40 plus knots. That's a pretty decent low-level jet. Again, you need 35 to 40 units of wind speed in order to get organized severe weather. We have that in the lower levels of the atmosphere. Go up a little higher in the atmosphere, you have that as well. This is from the GFS model. This is looking at winds at about 40,000 feet up in the atmosphere. And you can see, wow, we certainly have that going on. Way more than that. We've got maybe 50 to 60 units of wind speed there as well. So wind speed, not an issue, bottom line. Now, the big issue that we're going to have, we know we got the cold front coming through. So again, as I said, folks, and it isn't always this way, instability. That's always our big wind speed. Let me show you why it's going to be a problem. Let's take a look at how cloudy it's going to get on Thursday first before we go into it. All right, so here we are. We'll start off on Thursday afternoon. And by the way, this is a cloud cover graphic from the GFS model. Your top is showing here your total cloud cover, but you're looking at low-level clouds, mid-level clouds, and high-level clouds here, just to give you a breakdown of what you're looking at here. Notice we've got some clouds hanging over us, mid-level clouds. Those low-level clouds start to come into the picture the later on and we go, and really all layers end up getting it as we move into the overnight hours. So in a cloud cover like that is of course going to cover the sun up. It's going to make it more of a mostly cloudy sort of day. That's going to limit the amount of instability that we could realistically end up getting with this. And so it's exactly what the GFS is showing. It's showing next to no instability here for us. So here we are. You've got a very narrow band of instability. Watch that moves towards us, and basically, yeah, you can probably guess it. That's pretty well along the cold front. Right along the cold front, there's just enough lifting to make some instability in the atmosphere, but pretty much nowhere else. So it's going to be a very, if we get anything, it looks like it would be a very narrow band of instability that would create a very narrow band of a very narrow window for thunderstorms to be able to produce anything. You need that instability, bottom line, to be able to tap into those strong winds, bring them down to the surface. Without it, you just don't end up with severe weather. You end up with very flat storms. High-res NAM showing the exact same thing by the time you come into about 3 a.m. Central, 4 a.m. Eastern time here. There you go. There's that narrow band approaching with the cold front. It finally approaches us as we get into the early morning hours here. And again, it is extremely narrow, so that will very much limit the threat on there. Wind speeds certainly will be a big thing no matter what you go throughout the day, though. Just to give you one thing, if you have weak branches or things, lawn furniture, you can go ahead and secure those overnight. I think wind speeds will be a problem for some people, but severe wind speeds is going to be the real question mark at this point. Here's what I mean. This is the predicted wind gusts from the GFS model as the front is starting to approach us and move through. So this would be overnight, Thursday night and Friday. And you can see anywhere from 30 to 40 knots of wind gusts coming at us. Well, that's from 30 to 45 miles an hour or so gusting winds, and so 58 miles per hour or above is severe criteria for those wind gusts. So it's not severe criteria automatically here, but it's still strong enough winds that it can knock around some stuff in the backyard and things like that. So just take precautions. Basically, it's going to get windy, but it doesn't look overly severe to me at this point. Now, the GFS, I just want to show you again, showing that very same thing, and it's going to be a long duration, pretty much all night long we get those winds. Now, let's go ahead and time it out, what we can do. Show you a couple of models. Let's look at the GFS first, then I'll tuck to the high-res NAM and show you the future radar. Here's the GFS, and I don't have future radar for this. It doesn't have a future radar product, but you can look at total precipitation. There's a cold front again where these lines start to bend. There's your cold front out to our west. So this is about 1 a.m., midnight on Central Time, 1 a.m. Friday morning Eastern Time. The cold front is drawing near. There it starts to move through us by the time we get to 6, 7 a.m. in the morning. And you can see just not a whole lot of precipitation with us. The stronger colors would indicate where the heavier thunderstorms could be, because they are going to dump more rain. Obviously, the greens are going to be your lighter rains. So you can see just not an overly impressive thing as it moves through. Either way, it's pretty much gone by the time we head into the afternoon hours. Now, we look at it on the high-res NAM. I can go ahead and time it out on future radar, and as you would expect, future radar is not showing an impressive line at all. We go throughout the day on Wednesday. We're perfectly fine here. Thursday morning, maybe some stray showers during the day, but nothing overly impressive. By the time the afternoon works in, you've got moisture starting to funnel our way. You get into those overnight hours, that's when the cold front is starting to draw near. Here's midnight Central Time, 1 a.m. Eastern Time. There's your cold front pretty much out to your west. But look at it. It's not overly impressive. It's mostly greens with a little bit of yellow and occasional higher reflectivity data there in the reds. This would be one of those things that we're going to look at and say, well, this may not even be a whole lot of thunderstorms embedded in this. Might even just be shower activity. So there's some big questions about this right now. And as you see, as it moves in towards us, watch how future radar high-res NAM just literally shreds it, breaks it up over us, and by the time you get the actual cold front moving through, you just got a very narrow broken line band of more showers. I would question how much lightning we even have in this, to be completely honest with you. Now, again, those winds are going to be whipping at the surface, and they're going to be whipping at all levels of the atmosphere. But the question is, could we get severe winds out of this? What kind of severe weather could we get? If we get anything, it's going to be a damaging wind event. Tornadoes look very, very low threat to me at this point. If we do end up with a tornado, it would be an extremely brief spin up, and with being such limited instability, that's almost a non-existent threat in my opinion. And you look at you look at this line, and you have big questions about whether or not this can even produce any damaging winds. If it does, I think it would be very localized, and I think the warnings would be very isolated. Therefore, I can understand why the Storm Prediction Center would give it a marginal risk, but I certainly don't think a slight risk is justified for us. This is just going to be a kind of a breezy night with some showers and maybe a rumble of thunder here and there rolling through, but I don't look like doesn't look to me, folks, like it's going to be much of anything. Now, of course, as more data rolls in tonight, more data rolls in tomorrow, if things change, well, I'll do another video and certainly keep you updated. I'm certainly willing to stay up over the night if it looks like we're going to have a severe threat and keep you warned. But the bottom line is it's not looking like anything major to us at this point. My advice to you, best advice, folks, would just be turn your weather radio on before you go to bed, and you should be perfectly fine. Temperatures, we'll look at temperatures in a second just to give you a real quick idea how much precipitation we could get. Not a ton of rain with this, an inch or less most areas, about a half inch from this system as it rolls through. And then here's temperatures, and this is probably really, I think, the bigger story. Besides, we just get a little bit of moderate wind gusts sustained overnight. We're certainly going to cool things down. So we only make it to 70 or lower on Friday, but then look at that. We knock us down to more seasonable. Anywhere between 58 and 60 around our area right now is where we should be this time of the year. So we're still going to be warmer than normal for a few days. Keep that in mind. It's still going to be on the warm side of normal, but it's much more seasonable than these mid to upper 70s that we're seeing, and certainly that will be a big change. All right, folks, that is it. Again, a little bit of rain, nothing to worry about though. Slight risk of severe weather has been taken out. We're under a marginal risk now. Keep it tuned here to southernindianaweather.com. We'll keep you updated with more as time goes on. But again, right now it doesn't look like a major threat for us at this point. So that's it for this video. Take care, folks.